Welcome to the first edition of the Coaches Show with head women's lacrosse coach Shelley Klaes-Bawcombe. And you were just days away from game number 1 for your Dukes in the 2016 season, and you guys are wasting no time with tough opponents. You take on North Carolina. First, just welcome back for another season. Just talk about how our preseason's gone.
Yeah, I mean, it is intense. We got to get a lot going real fast. We open up with a team that was in the NCAA championship this past season, and it's a great way for us to put ourselves out there and just see exactly how far we've come in a short period of time. It is hectic right now because we're trying to clean up a lot of little things, trying to give us a little bit more polish on the field, because we do have expectation of a very high level, fast-paced game, that our program is going to be under a lot of pressure. And so we're trying to create an environment right now at our daily practices that reinforce those attributes so that when we get to our game on Saturday, it feels just like another day in the park.
You guys have really had to kind of take on all the elements with the cold, the snow. Just talk about how that's gone in your progression of getting ready for the season.
Well, we joke on our team, we're trying to be the toughest program on campus. If we're going to have to play in this crazy cold weather, then we have to practice in it. The mentality of our game is so important. So, we're trying to, take on all these uncontrollables of weather, surface, indoors, outdoors, and just get the most out of it. Right now I'm very proud of our girls. They recognize their uncontrollables, and they're trying to keep their disciplined minds focused on what they can control, and that's just creating a good product, a good practice, regardless of the situation.
You have some really good leaders coming back. Jackie Gordon, she's a preseason player of the year. You have Betsy Angel, Taylor Gress, Brooks Lawler. So some really good upperclassmen to really help lead some of your youngsters. Just talk about the leadership on this team and how that's really helping your team heading into 16.
Yeah, we are. We're very proud of our player development here at JMU. I mean, how can you go with graduating the class that we graduated and still have such high quality returners ready to take the team on their shoulders? Really proud of our senior class. They're going to be names that we don't even talk about this year that are just incredibly important to our program. The players that you speak of in particular just have so much talent and so much drive that we do have a standard that they will become leaders for us. And what we've been really pushing them on is how do they lead by example and continue to be that player that we go to, that other players can mimic, but we also have a very high expectation that they're going to be able to step outside their comfort zone and become vocal leaders and lay the groundwork and the vision for this program and help take us in that direction. They have a tall task ahead of us in that they follow Allie Kerwin, Lexi Cross, Steph Finley, our 3 captains from last year. But again, they have an opportunity to mimic what they saw in last year's championship program and do it in their way with their personalities and put their special touch on it.
Obviously, you guys were picked again to win the CAA after winning the conference championship last year up at Delaware. You have the CAA preseason player of the year, a bunch of all preseason all-conference players. How do you kind of get them to not think about, well, we have all this target on our back, we have all this pressure to win, and how do you keep them just focused on themselves and just getting better as a team and blocking out the noise, so to speak?
Right. I think that's just respecting the process and respecting why we received that accolade, and that was 100% for the work that this program did last year. We appreciate the respect. We feel as though we deserve it because of the work that we put in. And this year's program is this year's program. We got an award for last year's effort. So I think that's the best way to go about it. Bring them back to reality. One thing that I think is important is that this team is very hungry. I've coached other championship programs that forgot what got them there. They forgot the amount of work and resilience and daily focus that was necessary to do it again. And this team still has that chip on their shoulder, and we felt that this fall, and so now we've got to carry that with us, and just get them to loosen up a little bit more and, work for it. We do have experience as a program of being, the top dog and being hunted, but I think that it's really important for us to always remember that, the CAA is a dogfight, and last year's team that ended up being the regular season champions was the 4th seed going into preseason play. So we can't ever get too high or too low. We have to be willing to do the work and stay focused on the daily task.
A tough schedule ahead right out of the gates in the first month and a half. You have 4 teams preseason top 10, including your opener against number 2 UNC. But you take on number 1 Maryland. You take on number 6 Penn State, number 10 UVA. Year in and year out, you put together a really solid schedule. What's the thought behind that, and where do you see the positives that come from you setting your team up with some tough ones early?
Yeah, I think that there's so much involved in this. First and foremost, it's all I know. Being an athlete at JMU, we had one of the most competitive schedules in the country every year, all the time. We had no qualms about going into the NCAAs being 9-7 and still being a top 10 program. We weren't afraid to lose. So that's a quality and a characteristic trait that I learned here at JMU as a student athlete that I'm trying to give back to my athletes, because we do see that all of these obstacles and challenges set you up for life. So, there's a life lesson that goes on of the bigger picture thing here is you got to be willing to put yourself out there. You can't be afraid of failure. And you got to remember that you can learn just as much from a loss as you can learn from a win. And one of my former players, Susan Lyons, a few years back, told us that the L stands for lessons, not losses. And I took that to heart. And it's just it's a mentality here at JMU. We're absolutely trying to put ourselves in a position to have 2 avenues into the NCAAs. One would be through an at-large bid, through our strong performances and our non-conference play, and then being able to sustain that through conference. But we also recognize how much we have respect for our conference, and we don't want to take them lightly. So we want to put ourselves out there in the non-conference season so that we really have a strong understanding of what our resilience levels are, where we crack under pressure, and allow ourselves to grow early in the season so that we're ready come conference play, and we're used to that pressure and we're used to that pace. We have experience and we can have confidence in those late season conference games. And then obviously, should we perform well enough to actually get that bid to the NCAAs, maybe we've seen these teams, we're familiar with the style, the pace, and we can perform the way that we want to.
And finally, this weekend you open up your season, second-ranked North Carolina. You mentioned a national runner-up. How do you prepare your team for a game of this magnitude, having not played any other games?
Right.
And the only tape you have is off something you maybe seen in fall or even last spring.
That's right. We totally wing it. No. It's a mentality of, yes, we're playing a great opponent, but to be honest, at this point in the season, the opponent is us. What kind of a level can we play at? How intense are we going to be? How strong mentally are we going to be? How are we going to handle ourselves? How composed are we going to be? And can we sustain that intensity for a half, for 3/4 of the game, for 60 minutes of the game? And it's exciting. It's really exciting that we here at JMU have the respect nationally that we can draw these opponents to our stadium and be able to showcase our sport here at JMU with some of the best programs in the country. And I think the big thing is to take the focus off of UNC and put it back on JMU so that we have full control of what we're doing and we create no excuses.
All right, Coach, well, we appreciate the time. We'll talk with you next week for another episode of your Coach's Show after the opener against North Carolina. Thanks for the time.
Excited for the year.